Since 2007, one man has dared to expose the sinister power players on all sides of the phony political spectrum. Armed with over 30 years of research knowledge of the paranormal, government conspiracies, geopolitics, secret and ancient societies, the esoteric arts, and much more. One man's quest for knowledge has become a mission for the enlightenment of all people. Broadcasting from the conspiracy ground zero of Dallas, Texas, this is The Global Reality with your host, Josh Reeves.
Yes, indeed. Welcome to another edition of the show. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. It is Thursday, October 24th, 2019, and back here with you again for another edition. And I'm going to be getting into a lot of various news items, topics of discussion, etc., as I always do for you. So glad to be here with you for another show. I was going to be here yesterday, but weird technical issues. Again, weird stuff going on with the computer. I hadn't had any problems in a while. It's been going good. And I don't know. It just went dead yesterday. Like I said, the computer's old. I mean, I get it, but it's been working fine lately. And then, I had tons of open tabs and news stories and stuff that I've been saving up. And, of course, all that got lost. I was able to salvage some. So I'm going to give you everything I got tonight with, I've got, I think, just enough for this show. So we'll see how it goes. I thank you so much for tuning in, being here with me. What did I want to start with? Oh, I think I mentioned in the previous broadcast that I had, because I was talking about, the staged alien invasion stuff. I was talking about what I've talked about for many years with the space-based weapons being the ultimate goal of the staged alien invasion scenario. And I was even telling you back when Obama was in office, the Department of Defense was quietly both in publicly disclosed records and on black budgets with numbers we couldn't see, but just as far as the public end of stuff, the Obama administration was quietly spending billions of dollars, more money than had ever been spent by any previous administration, including the Reagan administration in the days of, everybody remember back when they were talking about, excuse me, Reagan's SDI, they called it the Star Wars program. And everybody thought that it failed because, they openly announced it. That's when they figured out, we're going to do this the way we want to do it. We don't need to tell the public about it. They've had, like I said, I talked about in the previous show too, with Hughes Satellite Corporation having these 100 killer satellites in orbit, we could shoot stuff down in, the late 60s and stuff. And what they were going to do with, we don't even know. There's so much classified stuff up there. But for years, they've been piggybacking commercial satellites, weather satellites. That's why they tend to use these companies. They tend to use these companies in that are, for the most part, oftentimes doing civilian satellite stuff, like the Hughes Satellite Corporation. I mean, I remember, I don't know, what was it, 10, 12 years ago, 14 years ago? I can't remember. Remember, they used to have, if you watched late night TV back then, almost every night they'd have infomercials for, I guess, for people that live out in, the rural areas. and where they want to sell you, satellite service that not only gives you TV channels, it gives you internet as well. It was slow as piss water. But for a lot of people living in rural areas, that's all they could get, And those were the Hughes Satellite Corporation. Another one is Iridium Satellite, which is interesting. They'd name it that, since the element iridium itself, a rare earth element, is used in so much of these technologies. But look into Iridium Satellite, dude. Look into the Bin Ladens. I think he had multiple Bin Ladens sitting on the board of that. There's it's a possibility. I've never been, just because of the people who source the information, I've never been one of those people that believe they used. Listen, when it comes to 9/11, all bets are off. I mean, it could have been anything. We've for sure never been told the truth about that, and yet we've had all these, supposed 9/11 truth groups, architects and engineers of the truth purporting to tell us, and none of them, in my opinion, have ever told us the real truth. They've just been more smokescreen for what really happened. But there are people who believe there were space-based weapons used on the attack of the World Trade Centers on 9/11. And interestingly enough, about that, whether you believe that or whether you don't, like I said before, anything's possible. But the fascinating thing to me is that you had possibly even Osama bin Laden himself. I'm not for sure. It's been so long it's been 15 years since I thought about this info, but I remember back when I was in the 9/11 truth stuff in the middle part of the last decade, that's one of the things I do remember coming across in my research was that that bin Laden's, possibly even Osama himself, sat on the board for the Iridium Satellite Company, and these Iridium Satellite companies made. I mean, go look at the stuff that they've produced. This is a company that is for sure a definite candidate for a corporation that would be using, or piggybacking rather, offensive space-based weapons and with military satellites. And I always remember always reference the movie Maximum Overdrive. Oh, I love that movie when I was a kid, man. God, I remember there was one summer, I guess it was the summer it came out on video or whatever. God, I probably watched that thing 5 times a week. I love that movie. And that's, it's based on the Stephen King story. You actually see Stephen King's got a cameo in it at the beginning. It's pretty funny. Honey, you want to come over here for a minute? This machine just called me an asshole. It's like Stevie King goes to the ATM machine, tries to get money out, and he puts his card in, and it just point blank on the screen just says, "You are an asshole," and then it just starts going asshole, asshole, asshole all over and over again all over the screen. And if you don't know the plot of the movie, this comet, air quotes, comet, comes over Earth and causes all the machines to go haywire and start killing humans. And then you find out at the end that it wasn't actually a comet at all. It was actually a UFO. They'd come over, and basically this is how they were, going to depopulate us, is by making the machines turn against us. But then they were taken down. This is hilarious. I didn't get this as a kid. It wasn't funny to me as a kid. I just thought it was a cool plot thing. But if you read the titles on the screen at the end of the movie, it says, and this is so snarky, it says because they even use the air quotes on it then, and it said something about, the UFO being shot down by I don't know, Class A laser aboard a Russian, air quotes, weather satellite. And when I was a kid, it wasn't funny to me. When I got older, I went, "Oh man, that's brilliant. That's genius." And, it just goes to show you, even somebody like Stephen King back in the early 80s, he wasn't just making that up, pulling that out of his ass, being clever. It was known back then, it wasn't known by everybody. but it's certainly not as many people, just like now. I mean, just like people knew about this kind of stuff back then, but it's a far smaller number of people than do now, but yeah, when I got older and I watched that, I read that, I went, oh man, that's interesting, because that just shows you, like, people even knew back then that wasn't just something Stephen King was trying to be funny about or make a joke about. It was known even back then that they were satellites up there around orbit that they were saying were for weather purposes or this purpose, that were spy satellites. And people think that we've only been being watched from space by satellites. The average person, really, this is no kidding, the average person thinks that that's only been going on since after 9/11, since the Bush era. And again, that's another falsehood. That's been admitted to. You can go look that up. They had satellites that could see. You could set a dime, small coin, on a parking lot, and in the middle 60s, they had satellites, even then, that could take a picture of a dime. You could see the head on a dime from space. In the 60s. They had that. They had stuff that good. Stuff got better and better, of course. But that, if your average person really, because that's when people only first started hearing about, spy satellites and stuff. They've had, the NSA's had keyhole satellites. I mean, Worldview 1, Worldview 2. The stuff they've had since the Bush era is the stuff where, they can see through a fucking bunker. They can see, 8 feet of concrete and rebar, and you can see a crystal clear image. I mean, I said they can see. I mean, it's beyond. It's not just now they can see in close detail, and it's been going on for a much longer period of time. And so space-based weapons, but now the big thing, again, those of you who's listened to this show know how long I've been talking about this, pretty much since the very beginning of the show. In my opinion, though, this is the biggest and most stunning. I almost can't even believe this is true. This is the most stunning revelation that's come out. And all I can tell you is, ladies and gentlemen, is that the future is now. This is not a joke. This is not a drill. NATO is getting ready to declare space. This is supposedly going to happen as soon as December of this year. The word around the campfire is NATO is getting ready to declare space as a quote-unquote war-fighting domain. Again, just like we talked about recently, this is why they've already had a space war going on up there for years. This is why Trump created Space Force stuff. NATO's getting ready to declare space as a war-fighting domain because of, supposedly, in their words, new developments in technology, which, again, as we know, have been around for years. They've just gotten much better now. This is huge. I mean, they're getting ready to avoid all space-based weapons. And this is, again, von Braun even warned about it in the 70s. He even knew then that the installation of space-based weapons and this idea of the staged alien invasion scenario, I think, would be happening simultaneously. And ladies and gentlemen, I've been telling you, I put my ass on a limb, and I said from the very beginning, I could be wrong about this, but I said from the very beginning of the Trump administration, I even put it in the Spellcasters 1.5 film. I told you from the very beginning that I felt and I believed, based on everything that I see coming, that we were going to possibly see the staged alien invasion scenario play out. And listen, this stuff, I mean, with you got impeachment stuff and all the rest of this, this is the thing. It could come any day. At an upcoming summit in early December, NATO is expected to declare space as a war-fighting domain, partly in response to new developments in technology. If it does declare space a war zone, NATO could start using space weapons that can destroy satellites or incoming enemy missiles. Now, this is fascinating because in the early days of, they stopped marking a lot of the planes, and who knows if they really are even planes. They could be holograms or who knows what. But I do know when in the early days of when I first started monitoring, and I had a journal for a long time. I don't know where it's at. I kept a chemtrail journal for a long time, but I got most of the data in my head anyway. For a few years, starting in 2004, I had a little journal that I would keep. Then I would make notes of what days that they would specifically being spraying chemtrails on. It's an interesting thing to do because when you see it laid out over a long enough time scale, you start to see patterns where you're like, wow, how it just seems almost impossible. And I understand every day there's flights and every day, and there's, there's flights all around the world every day, commercial traffic. I understand that, keeping planes in the air and flight schedules and all that is something they've been doing for quite some time. But the fascinating thing with me would be how the stuff would occur on such a precise schedule, and then it would overlap in the same way the following year. Like, for instance, I started noticing for like 5 straight years, the day before Easter, they would spray mega, and then the next day on Easter, it would rain. And they did this for like 5 or 6 years straight. But back then, a lot of these, if you had a good enough camera, and I had like HD cameras weren't around yet then, but I had a mini DV camera, and you could put it on a tripod and zoom in and get really close, and you could see. In fact, I think it's probably some of those videos shot with that camera way back in the way early videos on my YouTube channel. But one of the things that myself and other people around the world who were also monitoring chemtrail planes at that time started noticing is that when you pulled the numbers off these things and ran the numbers on these planes, they would always come back as registered NATO planes. So, again, I don't think this space-based weapons thing, we've known they've had them up there for years. They've been doing it in secret. Again, they're just doing this now as a formality because, well, I think for a variety of reasons. The ultimate goal, though, is to have space-based weapons that are pointed down to Earth, and when you could be able to see, in the satellites, crystal clear view, tracking technology with everybody's phones. They want to be able to eliminate anybody they want on planet Earth any given time for any reason from a space-based weapon. Can you imagine? It sounds like a crazy, fucked up, imaginary world in a science fiction film you'd never want to live in. But the idea that, hey, we're in this draconian environment now. We don't like you. We'll just zap your ass from space. We'll call it spontaneous human combustion, whatever. Sounds crazy, sounds nuts. Your average rational person would never, ever, even for a second, think that could be a possibility. But, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you, I believe not only is it a possibility, I believe it's the end game, and have for quite some time. If it does declare space a war zone, NATO could start using space weapons that can destroy satellites or incoming enemy missiles. But what is this technology, and how could it enable a war? In a recent first for space technology, Russia has launched a commercial satellite, it's always Russia, specifically designed to rendezvous with other satellites. The purpose of this vehicle is peaceful. It will perform maintenance tasks on other satellites in orbit. In fact, the fact that commercial companies have this capability probably means that it already exists for global military purposes. Bingo! Wow. I can't believe there was actually someone smart enough to write that sentence in a mainstream article. This has caught the attention of NATO. If a country or company can maneuver its own satellites into close proximity of others, then it can do so for military or sabotage purposes, potentially without detection. Another development is France's recent announcement that it will build bodyguard satellites armed with either machine guns or lasers. This is all ridiculous because, again, anybody that knows anything about anything knows that in this day and age, this is such disinfo. I mean, again, but this is how they're gonna convince the sheep to go along with it. You know, they got to have at least a reasonable and somewhat believable narrative for the sheep, right? But you all know as well as I do that, think about that. The idea of having other satellites up there with machine guns on them. France is building bodyguard satellites armed with machine guns or lasers. The idea that you're going to have weapons in space or satellites to take out other satellites. Yeah, I would have believed this if they were talking about this in the 80s or the 90s. But you all know as well as I do, hacking and you know, what do you call it? I can't even remember the word I'm trying to think of, you know, like a virus, hacking, that kind of stuff. I mean, the thing about it is, they're going to do it. It's ridiculous. Just the whole thing. I can't even get the words out because it's just so ridiculous. This is how stupid they think everybody is. We take out a satellite, we take it out electronically. Putting machine guns and stuff up there and saying it's because we want to take out or protect our satellites from other things. I mean, it's completely ridiculous. They want to put weapons up there. They have an ulterior motive for wanting to put weapons up there. But again, they've got to try and sell the sheep on the idea of this and not get them all nervous. And this is why we need to void these international treaties. This follows an announcement that the U.S. will launch a Space Force in 2018. Many other nations will also follow suit. Weird that this is an article from October 21st, 2019. That must have been a mistype. Many other nations will soon follow suit. But how would sabotage and warfare happen exactly? One method involves firing an intense beam of microwave radiation at an object. In fact, such concepts have been tested before by the police as a means of bringing a speeding car to a halt by disabling electrical devices on the vehicle. Yeah, it's an EMP, essentially. Such a concept deployed on satellites would constitute a directed energy weapon, enabling nations to disable other countries' satellites without creating large clouds of orbital debris. You could potentially make such an attack look like an accident and deny involvement. That's been going on for decades. The use of radio jamming to disrupt radar and communications dates back to World War II. By swamping a radio receiver with effectively radio noise, one can obscure the reception of genuine signals and render the system inoperative. This is a little like trying to spot the light from a candle against the glare of car headlights. Satellites are thoroughly tested for self-generated radio noise before going into space, but if a hostile satellite nearby were to deliberately direct broadband radio transmissions at the target satellite, then communications could be completely disrupted. Space-based electronic warfare is likely to become an increasing concern for military planners. In fact, many military services on Earth now depend on space technology to work. By far, the most obvious method of interfering with a satellite is a solid projectile. That just seems weird to me, too. It just seems, I would think that the amount of force you would need in zero gravity would be a problem. I don't know. Moving satellites have very high kinetic energy and momentum. If a slower moving object can be placed briefly in the path of a satellite, I gotcha, then the resultant collision will be particularly devastating. Like a kinetic, it's the same like the kinetic energy weapon. Yeah, okay, like a rail gun or something. These so-called kinetic kills have previously only been used to take satellites out of commission at, the end of their life. with the U.S., Russia, China, and India demonstrating their ability to perform this type of removal consists of a ground-launched missile aimed at the satellite. If aimed at an adversary satellite, such a missile would be fairly obvious and could be tracked by other nations using radar. A more subtle method would be to destroy a satellite owned by the country or company launching the missile and aim to produce as much debris as possible, which then lies in the orbital path of the intended target. This could look like an accident and actually accidentally, air quotes, I would say accidentally occurred in 2007. I remember that. I didn't think that was intentional. As far as kinetic weapons in space are concerned, machine guns are generally problematic due to the recoil involved. Right. That was my argument. If the weapon is fired at any angle which is not in the exact direction of the orbital path the satellite is traveling along, then a torque will be applied, rapidly changing the direction of it. The idea of kinetic weapons has been attempted before. The Soviet space station Salyut 3, for example, was armed with a rapid-fire cannon in the mid-1970s. That's what I'm telling you. You ever heard that before? You ever heard that? I love when they just drop shit like that and act like it's just common knowledge. They've been talking about it for years. Give me a fucking break. What? The Soviet space station's Salyut 3 was armed with a rapid-fire cannon in the mid-1970s? That's what I'm saying, folks. They've had that shit up there. All of the so-called commercial or not commercial, but public civilian space programs have all been fronts. You know this. Have all been fronts for the military stuff since the beginning. Lasers are also being considered as defensive weapons, with the idea being to take out attacking satellites. Solar panels, when with no power, the satellite will be unable to communicate with the ground station, is essentially lost. The recoil from a laser is much smaller, and the lack of atmosphere would allow them to perform better than on the Earth's surface. A laser could be used to bind instrumentation on an opposing satellite, thereby reducing the efficiency of other rendezvous or aiming software. The most likely satellites to be targeted would be those dedicated to communication or observing. With the newest research satellites able to take images down to a 30-centimeter resolution, please, motherfucker, please. God damn, quit acting like we're all fucking retarded. They've had that resolution for literally over 20 years. Acting like that's fucking, down to 30 centimeters. Ooh. How long have you been able to look with better imaging than that? Think about how long 10 years? How long have you been able to get on, at least 10 years you've been able to get on Google Earth. Military versions are likely to be even better. Oh, yeah, likely to be. Love that. A nation with no communication faculties or ability to observe others will never know who has launched an attack against them, right? Because that's, they don't have contingency backups for these stuff that are in secret. Come on. Of course, they couldn't say that because then they'll know about it, and there's no reason to have contingency backups that are secret, but they have contingency backups that are secret. The U.S. the United States, and who knows what we've given to, Russia's been at the forefront of this for a long time, but, unless we've given them stuff, the U.S. has been way light years ahead of everybody else in this field for decades. For literally decades. But they beat us. They had a HARP type system before we did. Did you guys know that? I'm sure a lot of you probably knew that. I think it was called Sura, Sura. It's interesting when you go and look at it. It's abandoned now, but I think it's still there. But it was like a smaller version of HARP before HARP existed, and it did the same thing in ionosphere Keter, stuff like that. All the whatever else military stuff they were doing. But Russia probably weather modification and everything else. Russia had that technology before we did. And when you go and look at where it's at, and what part of Russia it is, it's on that far side of Russia that's closest to Alaska. And you can pull it up on a map. If you look up the coordinates of the HARP facility and the coordinates of the Sura ionospheric heater in Russia, they're in a straight line directly right across the water from each other. And I don't think that was an accident. I think they probably were built to work in conjunction with each other, because also the Arecibo observatory is it actually doubles. That's admitted to. That's not a conspiracy theory. It's admitted to. The Arecibo. You've seen the Arecibo. It's been in a bunch of movies, in the X-Files, and that big I think it was in Contact too. I think that's where they were at the beginning of the movie Contact. They were at Arecibo, that bowl-shaped radar array that can work in conjunction with HARP and probably the Russian ones as well. They can work in conjunction with one another. Where'd I leave off here? But what would a space war look like from Earth? Well, you've been seeing the stuff that's been falling out of the sky for the last 10, 15 years. And like I talked about before, when you see colors that don't match, where you see an iron meteorite, you know what color iron is when it burns, and everything else. And then you see these weird colored objects streaking down to Earth, and then people find the parts of them, and they don't match anything we have down here. It's pretty clear what that is. What would a space war look like from Earth? While sci-fi films have conditioned us to believe that space lasers would use visible light, shorter wavelengths actually produce more power. Any observers on the surface would be unlikely to directly see any effects from space warfare unless a kinetic kill actually breaks a spacecraft up, with debris lighting up as it re-enters the atmosphere. That said, attacks could still affect our lives on Earth, disturbing GPS, television services, and even cash withdrawals. Oh, there we go. We're back to the Stephen King. Yeah, okay. I get it. Yeah, see, Stephen King fucking knew what was up even before anybody else did. You're gonna go with the fucking ATM one night, the motherfucker's gonna call you an asshole. Honey, this machine just called me an asshole. And then AC/DC's gonna crank up in the background. The use of nuclear weapons and weapons of mass destruction in space is currently banned under the Outer Space Treaty and the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, but not all nuclear-armed nations have ratified the latter, including the U.S. and North Korea. A small number of nuclear tests in space were conducted in the 1960s, including Starfish Prime. These resulted in artificial radiation belts forming around the Earth, which were still detectable decades after the event, posing a danger for astronauts. Fascinating. So wow. And you motherfuckers still think we went to the fucking moon in that tinfoil goddamn piece of shit with spacesuits that even the company that made the suits said they were not engineered with any, not even just a little bit. They were engineered with zero radiation protection. Because they weren't designed to go to space, man. That's why they didn't have any radiation. You think that was just an oversight? You think we're getting ready to send men to the moon? That was just an oversight? No, they were some fucking costumes, man, like they'd wear in Hollywood. That's fascinating. I got to admit, I kind of feel like I'm slipping that I didn't know that. I heard of Starfish Prime before, obviously, but I had no idea that we did nuclear tests in space in the 60s. I mean, that just fucking furthers my resolve on the whole. Yeah. So on top of the Van Allen radiation belts, apparently now this is insane. We also have, that's why all this stuff. Well, we're going to the moon, and fucking Elon Musk, we're going to Mars. You motherfuckers ain't going nowhere with current technology unless you guys get the rest of the pieces to the ancient stargates and figure out how to go from point A to point B through them. You ain't nobody going nowhere. And even the idea of it is just a pipe dream until you can prove and show that you can send a living organic being through those radiation belts and back. And until you can do that, everything else is just a pipe dream. That's fascinating, man. I did not know that. What the fuck were they thinking there? And maybe that wasn't, let's talk about this. Maybe that wasn't what they said it was. I mean, maybe that Starfish Prime wasn't just setting off nuclear detonations in space. We know that's when, like I said before, like I talked about last show, like I mentioned earlier, the Hughes satellite, 100 killer satellites, they went in like 68. That was a year before the supposed Apollo missions. Here they're saying the 1960s was when they did Starfish Prime. Maybe that was what led them to the idea that they need to start putting offensive space-based weapons in orbit. Was that they launched some, some nuclear weapons up there at some big ships that were trying to enter Earth's atmosphere, and inadvertently ended up creating these additional radiation belts around the Earth. Wow. Man, that would make a lot of sense. A small number of nuclear tests in space were conducted in the 1960s, including Starfish Prime. These resulted in artificial radiation belts forming around the Earth, which were still detectable decades after the event, posing a danger for the astronauts. So again, decades after the event, then just a few years later when they were doing Apollo, yeah, they went through the Van Allen radiation belts and these. Come on. These radiation belts also disabled half a dozen satellites in low Earth orbit. If the results of Starfish Prime are anything to go by, then clearly it would only take a handful of nuclear detonations to make space unusable for any satellites for decades to come. Well, obviously you're reading between the lines right there with that, like I am. That makes total sense. This is why they would want to start finding something where basically you could shoot it down with a laser or some projectile. Let's say, let's not say it's little green men, but let's just say some unidentified object that they believe could be extraterrestrials or something, or not friendlies, starts kind of head towards Earth. You wouldn't, again, shooting nuclear missiles at those every time you saw one. Yeah, it wouldn't take long for it to be a big problem. But if you had, say, a laser, a space-based nuclear, not nuclear, but non-nuclear offensive weapon, well, then you could shoot that sucker down, and the pieces would just fall to Earth, and most of it would burn up in the atmosphere. And that's, in my opinion, that brings us right up to date. I think that's what's been going on. I think that's what has been going on for decades. And God, that would have been right around the time von Braun was in the heart of NASA. Think about that. That would have been when von Braun was in the heat of it with NASA, right around that time of the 60s, right before the Apollo mission. Makes sense that he would be such in the know about this idea of the staged alien invasion scenario and all of it being a pretext for the installation of space-based weapons. Makes total sense, more sense to me now than it did before. Because they would have been trying to come up with something other than the nuclear option. Given the options now becoming available, it seems important to remember that under the Outer Space Treaty, space is supposed to be used only for the peaceful purposes and remain the domain of all of mankind. Well, it ain't been that way for a long time, but yeah. It's interesting stuff. It is interesting. And really, with everything I've already, where is this from? Fizz.org. Wow. Because I've been studying this stuff for so long, as I was doing here, reading the article, I have the ability to read between the lines. I'm telling you, there's a couple of those. There was a couple of revelations in there. And I mean, this is another great example of why I stay so dedicated to this stuff and do my news gathering and my due diligence every day with this stuff, because you just never know where. I mean, they slide stuff out all the time, folks like that, and they act like it's fucking just, oh yeah, well, everybody's already known that for years. Little things like that all the time. But then when you have it in the context of other things, it can give you some real insight. What else I got? What other fucking news stories going on? Oh, God. Well, that has nothing to do with info and truth stuff. But I talked about, I think it was on the last broadcast or recent broadcast, I talked about, remember when I was talking about the UFC stuff and these fights being, I think a lot of stuff is staged. The guys are really fighting. I mean, these fights are real, but I just mean like I was talking about when Nate Diaz was, he called out Jorge Masvidal and talked about doing the BMF belt thing. He just happened to be in the crowd for that. That was all pre-planned and all that. Crazy news that came out today. Apparently, the fight is off. Nate Diaz, they're claiming, now nobody in the UFC has officially admitted any of this yet or made an official statement about any of this yet. According to Nate Diaz, he was told by the people in the hives of the UFC that he tested positive for a banned substance. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean steroids or anything else. It's at this point they're just saying a banned substance, which could be anything, something from supplements or anything else, and that he was told by the UFC to not even say anything about it and just fight anyway, and then deal with it after the fight's over, which they apparently do all the time with fighters. So that was something I already knew, but just to see him admit that. But I know exactly why all this is happening. If you look at the timing of this, because, and I gotta tell you, I fucking can't stand Conor McGregor. Fuck that guy. Listen, I love Ireland. Fucking Aaron Go Bra for life. But listen, fuck Nate, fuck Conor McGregor. Fucking hate that guy. He's a fucking piece of garbage. But they've been trying to get him to come back and fight for a long time. And now he's had all this fucking bullshit, all these cases, and he hit the old guy in the pub and assaulted him. And now he's saying sex rape charges coming against him. But none of that stuff's gone to court or anything yet. But if all that stuff gets drug out and it goes, and he gets prosecuted and goes to court, he's not going to be able to fight. So I think all this stuff with Diaz, I think it's all bullshit, because listen, everything was good until this most recent stuff that came out just a few days ago of the current stuff with Conor McGregor. And then Conor McGregor, as soon as the fucking Nate Diaz made this announcement earlier today, Conor McGregor's on fucking Twitter saying, I'm coming. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, well, maybe I'm wrong about that. Wow. I mean, this literally just came out as I was saying this. I saw a thing popped up on the side of the stage. Apparently, Conor McGregor has just announced, that he is returning to fighting, and that he's going to fight January 18th in Las Vegas. Okay, so apparently this was put out this morning. So this was put out before the announcement with the Nate Diaz stuff. Okay, so I just didn't see this. I guess the Nate Diaz thing must have eclipsed it. So Because see, what I was thinking is I was thinking what they were going to do for the BMF belt, the bad motherfucker belt, is that they were going to, this whole thing with Nate Diaz was going to be staged so they could get Conor in there to fight Masvidal for the BMF belt, to get Conor a fight before, he's brought up on these rape charges or whatever other charges he's got pending against him. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't know. Something's fishy about all this. And the most disappointing thing is I don't think anybody was looking, that was going to be the fucking fight of the year, the fight of the decade between those two. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this. But something fucky is going on here. And again, I've told you, it's just like with every other, the main thing, once you understand sports betting, once you understand how much money there's involved in both illicit gambling and legal gambling, and once you understand and you go and study the refs, these guys, refs, judges, everybody, all these guys have been on the take for years. There's varying different degrees of, the NFL is the worst. The NFL is so corrupt. I haven't watched football in a long time, but I pay attention to it peripherally because the same way as I pay attention to these. I don't pay attention to baseball or basketball, but the NFL a little bit and the UFC I pay attention to. And it's fascinating how many overlaps with the research, there are in that. Especially, if you want to go back, I've talked about it before, but you can go back to the beginning of the NFL. The NFL was created. Do you realize that? No, a lot of people don't realize that the NFL was actually created by organized crime, by the mafia, so they could essentially have a sport that they owned and controlled to control the betting on. And people just fucking want to stick their head in the sand and act like it isn't. But specifically, let me rephrase that. Not the entire NFL. I actually made a mistake there. You got to go back to the AFL with Lamar Hunt. What I mean is when the creation of the AFL with Lamar Hunt, which eventually, because before that you just had, it was totally different prior to that. And that's why they used to have, even before they called it the Super Bowl, it used to be, that was why it was like the AFL, the first Super Bowl was like the AFL, it was like two leagues, it was the inter-league championship. The NFL would play the AFL, the startup league, and whoever won, that won the Super Bowl. That was how it started. But that was all created, the AFL and all that stuff, with the Kansas City Chiefs and Dallas Cowboys, Lamar Hunt, the Hunt Oil brothers here in Dallas that I've talked about, their connection to mafia, organized crime, that whole creation of that was done in order to be able to have, to benefit organized crime over control, the gambling, the money laundering, and the rest of that stuff. I think they even still have a Lamar Hunt trophy that they give out, and that was just one of the many things. But that's, that kind of stuff really became in the forefront for me when I first got into the Council for National Policy Research, because then I started to see the connections and God, it all makes sense now. The connections to organized crime, even with stuff, the Kennedy assassination as well. And it's no different now. And that's like I've been telling you with this Russian information. While you have these two sides of the Russian mafia, the left wing and the more right wing side, these guys are involved in they're all involved in illicit gambling and controlling gambling and all, in sex trafficking and drugs and the rest of it. You've just got one side that wants to take the other side out. But again, these guys are steeped in the UFC. So any of this stuff that you see like this that seems suspect to you, if you're a fan of the UFC, you should go with your gut instinct on that, because I'm here to tell you that's why you see all these guys involved with the Russian mafia, why they have these guys working security detail for them. It's all one big thing, and one has to do with the other. And it's it's just like these guys who were these rappers who were literal crack slingers that built empires and built record labels. So many hip hop record labels have been built off the proceeds of drug sales. And that's what so much of this stuff is. It's the legitimization of things that started out as ways to be able to make money and proceeds garnered from illegal activities legitimate. It's getting almost impossible to find things that weren't started for those reasons, the deeper that you look. It's astounding. Let's see what else we have. You know, I wasn't even going to talk about this. One of our listeners sent me this, and I mean, this is not breaking news. This is old fucking news. Scientology members have quietly spent millions in a land grab to take control. This is in the news this week. I saw this. I wasn't going to cover it. I'm only covering it, talking about it now because it was sent to me by a listener. So, as a courtesy, I'm going to talk about it. But I'll be honest with you, this is not news. This is not anything new. This has been going on for about 20 years. I guess they're saying now over the past 3 years it's increased, but this is nothing new. They've been taking over Clearwater, Florida forever. That's been their goal for a long time. Their goal is they want to buy up everything, and they want that to be. They've been trying to have their own town, and it essentially is now. But they want everything. They want all the businesses to be Scientology businesses, owned businesses. This is their attempt to basically have their own town. The Church of Scientology, its members, and companies controlled by its members has spent $103 million over the past 3 years. So that's actually, it's a drop. If you look at what they've spent worldwide, yeah, I get it. I get it. It is kind of suspicious that they're essentially taking over an entire city of their own, and nobody seems to have a problem with it. But really, if you look at the worldwide numbers of what they've spent over the last 10 years buying up properties all over the planet, all over the world, that should scare you more than this. And as I've told you, I think probably it will coincide somewhere close with the installation of these space-based weapons and the staged alien invasion scenario. But I'm here to tell you, when they get to ready to really merge us into the one world idea, one world government and one world religion and all that stuff. I've told you from the very beginning, I may have changed my outlook on and view on a lot of things through the years. One thing I've stand by that I've said for the past 12 years is that, and I used to get laughed at. I don't get laughed at so much anymore. Church of Scientology, people used to not, because people just couldn't see it 10, 12 years ago. I could see it because I'd already been looking at this stuff for a long time. People just hadn't gotten there yet. I was already so far ahead of people in my research that I would say things and people would think I was crazy because people just hadn't gotten there yet. There's been a lot of stuff like that. But I've said from the very beginning that Scientology absolutely will be, and it's been set up. This is why, it's like I showed you in Spellcasters Volume 1, this is why the significance of L. Ron Hubbard and somebody like Sumner Redstone, Viacom, these guys being in the OSS and the CIA right at the exact same time, and right at the exact same time as MK Ultra is being created. None of this was a coincidence. They have been prepping Scientology to be what will be the one world religion once they get ready to roll that out, because they're going to basically put it out there as Scientology is the only one that got it right. After they reveal the aliens to us and we have the stage alien war and the rest of it. Times investigative reporters poured over thousands of deeds and business records. Interviewed more than 90 people. Connected also to church buying its first hotel in the area in 1975. The Scientologists and their businesses now owning 185 properties covering 101 acres in the heart of downtown Clearwater, Florida, which is also Scientology's headquarters and home to its flag campus, to which Scientologists across the globe make pilgrimages. So, yeah, that's a drop in the bucket. These guys they've been buying up property all over the globe for many decades, and nobody's really sure why. Clearly, people are just not thinking sinister enough. They're trying to take over. This is for the takeover, y'all. This is for the complete and utter takeover. And if you're a majority landholder, this is how they've been doing this, man. This is why it costs so much to go through those auditing things. Where do you think that money's going? It's not just going for the top people in Scientology to have nice houses, nice cars and stuff and bling bling. No. That money's going into the kitty for the takeover, because these motherfuckers are trying to take on the Vatican. And good luck with that. Good luck with that. I don't see you getting that kind of money off Tom Cruise money. You can't even touch Vatican money. You can't even, I don't even think that I even can even put a number on that. You know, especially when you understand how the Rothschilds have been the caretakers of that cash for so many years. People give the Rothschilds, I think, sometimes more credit and less credit than they deserve. I think both occur, but definitely more credit than they deserve as far as thinking that things that have been done solely in their name, for their purposes, when in reality, much of it, of what the actions and things they have done have been because they're the ones that control the finances of the Vatican. And so it's a way that they can be able to do that without having the attention and blame attached to the Vatican itself. Another Scientology-related story in the news this week: Danny Masterson's alleged sexual assault victims serve Scientology's David Miscavige with legal papers. The four women suing Danny Masterson, he's been, this guy's come out clean. This is not the first time. This guy's come out clean as a whistle. Why are all those motherfuckers that were on that 70s show, why are they all creepers? Even fucking, what's his dick? Fucking punk guy, Ashton Kutcher. Even he's not a Scientologist, but a couple of those other people on that show were, but he's still a weirdo creep. There's something shady about that. Something's up with him. I don't know exactly. There's something up with that guy. I'm not sure exactly what it is. There's some weird shit with that guy. He's, I don't know. All that weird shit with remember his ex-girlfriend got supposedly murdered by a serial killer, and all the weird shit that came out during that trial. I don't know. The four women suing Danny Masterson for alleged sexual assault have slapped the Church of Scientology's leader, David Miscavige, with legal papers. That doesn't make any sense. What does that have to do with Miscavige? I mean, I'm not defending him, but, you work for Pizza Hut, and you go Cosby a bunch of women. Do they come and serve papers to the CEO of Pizza Hut just because so one of their employees butt raped and Cosby'd some women? I don't think so. So that, to me, means that there's something else going on here that even the media is not telling us and not reporting on. Because there's really no reason, unless it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that they would serve these anything papers. I mean, would they go and do that to, if you're a Catholic, are they going to go to your bishop and give him paper? It just doesn't make sense. Something else is going on here they're not telling us about. Probably, again, this is speculation. Don't send your fucking death dogs on me, Scientology. I'm just fucking making speculation. I'm not saying this is a fact. You got to word this shit. You got to be careful how you word shit with these fuckers, man. I'm telling you, I've fucked up in the past and think they fucking have did shit to me. I hadn't had any weird shit happen in a couple of years, but listen, my hypothesis is that David Miscavige does have something to do with this, and then he has enough power and money to have been able to keep that out of the thing. Maybe him and Danny Masterson were doubling up on chicks, the Cosby double team, the Cliff Huxtable double deluxe. According to court documents obtained by the Blast Mastersons, alleged victims are informing the court that they have legally served Miscavige with their lawsuit. The service was done at the Church of Scientology Celebrity Center International on Hollywood Boulevard. The papers were given to an employee at the front of the center. The documents being served will allow their suit to continue on against Miscavige. But, I mean, I'm confused. I just read you everything in this article. I'll read it to you again. Why is there a lawsuit going on against Miscavige? This doesn't make any sense. This is supposed to be about Danny Masterson. Oh, okay. Here we go. So back in August, the four women, two of whom are identified by name, the other two are Jane Doe, sued Masterson, the Church of Scientology, and Miscavige. Oh, I got you. Oh, they're trying to get paid. Yeah, that's what this is. All right. Okay, I got you. They're trying to get paid. They'll get paid too. What'll happen is that this ain't Scientology ain't sweating this one bit. Miscavige, you think Miscavige losing any sleep over shit? No, dude. They've done this a million times. All they're gonna do, what they'll do is, they'll get the women to recount all their stories, all their statements. They'll get them to say that it wasn't true. They'll get them to sign NDAs, and they'll give them a fuckload of fuck off money, and it'll go away. Anytime any of this happens, that's their only concern. Scientology doesn't give a fuck about the money. They don't give a shit. It's nothing to them. They'll make that back the next time fucking Tom comes to visit. That what they want is they don't want there to be any official judgments against Scientology. So they'll pay off judges, they'll pay off whoever they got to pay off, defendants, trial judge, whoever. They'll pay. They don't care how much it costs. They'll pay everybody off. They'll get them to claim. They'll get everybody to claim that to drop the lawsuits or something else, and then everybody gets paid and everybody goes home. And Scientology will do it. They'll do it. It's not shit to them. You know, they got plenty of money coming in. That's never going to be a problem. What else we got here tonight? More on this Freemason fucking idiot I've told you about. Tom DeLonge. Man, I started telling you guys about this plant even before he was even in the news regularly. I was telling you about this guy, not to trust this guy. Him and his fucking Masonic nut ragged Jobulon picture where he's wearing the fucking Masonic apron hanging out with the Prince Hall brothers. And hanging out with fucking, all the people I exposed. The remote viewing clowns I exposed connected to Scientology and Spellcasters 1. I mean, if this doesn't seal it home even for you, I don't know what will. Tom DeLonge's To the Stars Academy strikes research deal with the U.S. Army. Oh, that's fucking hilarious. And again, this is another one of those things they do. Yeah, they've set the backstory up for the past couple of years with Tom and his search for UFOs and the Tic Tac thing, which is slowly starting to unravel as, the bullshit we all know it was as pretext for the coming staged false flag alien invasion scenario. But, yeah, again, just like I was talking about earlier with NASA and all this, this is one of the things they do just to build the public narrative. The guy undoubtedly has been working with the government and with the military from the very beginning, but because of his status as a musician, they had to get him in there in some other route. Then they legitimize, and they had even had guys go on Joe Rogan legitimizing it a couple of weeks ago. With that guy that was on, it was a different guest, but the same guy that was on with him when Bob Lazar was on. Remember that weird bearded guy that was with him on Lazar? Well, he had another show where he had another Navy guy that came on, and they spent the whole time legitimizing the Tic Tac thing. And then right after it, boom, here it comes. Oh, Tom DeLonge, all of a sudden, now that's legitimized, and they used Rogan to legitimize it. Boom. $37 million deal or something with the Army or something. Bullshit. This has all been narrative building from the very beginning. He's been working with them from the very beginning. This is all about, just like I've been telling you, this is all about the establishment of these narratives so they can have a backstory to go to when they get ready to roll out the staged scenario. Just a month after getting the U.S. Navy to admit for the first time that a UAP caught on video wasn't just a weather balloon, DeLonge's TTSA, the To the Stars Academy, has entered into an agreement with the U.S. Army. The U.S. Army Combat Capabilities Development Command is extremely interested in TTSA's technology research. In particular, they're looking at making strides in how material science, space-time metric engineering, quantum physics, beamed energy propulsion, and active camouflage have the potential to enhance survivability and effectiveness of multiple Army systems. You motherfuckers. Beamed energy propulsion, space-time metric engineering. You motherfuckers. Y'all, God. Y'all just think we're all fucking idiots. And I give it to you. Most people are idiots. I'll give that to you. Man, that's all stuff. That's all back engineered alien shit that they're wanting to use for. I don't know what kind of bill of goods he sold and what's going on here, but this is almost making it seem like DeLong has actually got some access to some actual, maybe this is making it sound like he's got he's got a fucking UFO in storage somewhere. I know that sounds ridiculous, and it probably is, but that's what the story is making it sound like. Why the fuck do they want to? Would the Army want to make a fucking multi-million-dollar deal with an idiot like Tom DeLonge from a crappy band? Material science, space-time, metric engineering? What? Beamed energy propulsion? Active camouflage? Dude. Something's going on with it. See, again, I think this is how they're going to, again, another one of those avenues of how they're going to roll out this stuff. Beamed energy propulsion, space-time, metric engineering. Sounds like they're working on a real-life Milano, doesn't it? What's a Milano? Did I miss something? I think I'm pretty plugged in with what's a Milano. Oh, that's some comic book shit. Okay. That's some Marvel shit. The vessel known as the Milano is one of the M ships used by the Ravagers. These ships were used for scouting and hunting purposes. Oh, yeah. The fucking Guardians of the Galaxy. Okay, I got you. That doesn't seem to be the case for now. However, as the deal applies specifically to the Ground Vehicle Systems Center and Ground Vehicle Survivability and Protection, the U.S. Army will provide facilities and resources for To the Stars Academy's exploration of new material and technology innovations in order to develop enhanced capabilities for Army ground vehicles. There's something's going on here. This dude, what the fuck? Did DeLong get his ass? Did the Freemasons give him a crashed UFO? Something's going on here. This is fucking bizarre. This really is. I'm quite speechless here. I don't even know what to say, because the only thing that I can say from judging by this. Because why would they be giving him money for these things? Those things sound like things that we don't. If the Army doesn't have those things, why are they paying Tom DeLonge for the research into those things? Nobody's going to give you any money, especially the military, unless you've proven to them and shown them some sort of working thing. But they would never put that out in the media. Something like this, a money deal, a research deal. They don't have to give all the details of why the military would be doing a deal with Tom DeLonge or all this stuff. But undoubtedly, there's no question that they wouldn't be doing this unless he was in the possession of some kind of technology and has proven to them that he has it, that the military can then use for weapons purposes. So, I mean, Jesus Christ, man. If you already didn't like this guy, I mean, he's basically point blank telling you right here. That's one of the things about. That's what I've heard. I've heard that there's, when you get to the upper levels, the highest levels of masonry, and this is unconfirmed stuff, and it certainly isn't anything that they put in any of their books or anything like that. But I heard many years ago that when you get to the highest upper echelons of Freemasonry, that they bring you in a room and they bring out the Masonic Bible and they ask you to spit on it. And if you don't do it, they say, congratulations, you passed the test. You know, you're whatever, 33rd degree or whatever level now. You're the highest level. Congratulations, boom, that's it. If you do spit on it, they say, congratulations, you passed the test. Follow us. And then they take you into some chamber where you meet the aliens. I heard that many years ago. Whether there's anything to that or not, I don't know. I'm only talking about it here because it almost has got me thinking, like, yeah, like maybe that's why he was hanging out with the brothers. Maybe that's why he was hanging out with the Prince Hall brothers. Maybe the Prince Hall brothers got their hands on a fucking extraterrestrial craft and they've got it locked down in some lodge somewhere, and DeLong's trying to fucking be the bag man to negotiate a deal to get some money for this, for the brothers, for the Masons, for them. I don't know, man, because I don't know how else the military's not just going to give you, I don't care who you are. Just because you talked about extraterrestrials and you played in a crappy band, the U.S. military is not going to give you that millions of dollars. They're not going to give you millions and millions of dollars just for some smoke and mirror thing of some kind of technology. You'd have to prove in some kind of working capacity. And listen, this also matches with what we know, or at least the stories that we've heard, for what they've been doing for years, specifically since Roswell in 1947, with back engineering these crafts and pulling out multiple technology. I mean, that's where we got, because when the Roswell crash happened, they brought the initial stuff was first brought to this area, Dallas-Fort Worth area. And supposedly that's where silicon transistors came from, was from the Roswell crash. And boom, just a few years later, what gets invented right here in Dallas, Texas, the silicon transistor, Texas Instruments, right here. That's why there's so many aerospace companies and military industrial complex companies here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Supposedly, because again, those didn't form until after the whole Roswell thing, where whole new industries were created off of the things they back engineered from those. And that's exactly what this sounds like. It sounds like they've got a crash vehicle somewhere that somehow, I don't know if it was through the brothers or the Prince Hall Freemason brothers or who it was through, who knows. It seems to me that DeLong somehow got his hands on a real actual fucking craft, and now the military needs a way to be able to, it seems like he struck a deal where, okay, you let me do this, what I want to do with this alien thing, stay off my back on this. That'll serve your agenda with the staged alien invasion scenario thing, and it'll allow you guys to be able to back engineer this technology off of this craft that we have and do it under the guise of research of my To the Stars Academy, where we're hunting for extraterrestrials. This is really unprecedented. I can't even believe, this just shows you their arrogance. I can't even believe they're admitting to this. I mean, you know as well as I do, ladies and gentlemen, they're not just going to give some retard like, oh, that's my thing. They're not going to give some fucking terrible singing guy like him. The military is not going to do a deal with you. I mean, those technologies sound insane. It should sound insane to the average person. But when you know what stuff that, like, when you talk about characteristics of what these, some of these craft have been seen doing, beamed energy propulsion, quantum physics, active camouflage. I mean, that's all stuff that sounds like it came from. And what's this? Below, there's pictures of, it doesn't say anything. Oh, here it is. Over the last few weeks, Tom DeLonge has peppered his Instagram with images of exotic material and a metamaterial they believe may have come from an unidentified aerial vehicle. Perhaps, oh my God, perhaps this is some of the research in which the U.S. Army is interested. Take a look below. Holy fuck, I was right. He's posted pictures on his Instagram of this. This is, oh yeah. Oh, well, yeah, there we go. Oh, dude, this is wild. That's some fucking exotic material. You could just tell by looking at it. That's some kind of exotic. That son of a bitch has got his hands on a fucking craft. Motherfucker. And I bet you $1 to donuts he got it from this with the Freemasons. Holy shit, man. Wow. Yeah. Dude, I was really just speculating. I didn't know about that he'd posted these pictures. Wow. So whatever this is probably what he showed the military. Whatever, dude, he just showed them pieces of this thing. And just based on I get it now, based on these pieces were so exotic. The material and the engineering is so exotic. Just based on these pieces, the U.S. Army gave Tom DeLonge's Academy a deal for this. Wow. These motherfuckers got their hands on a craft, didn't they? Son of a bitch. Now we know why they fucking did that. Whether you believe they went to the moon or not, the motherfuckers did a Masonic ritual up there to declare the moon the sovereign property of international Freemasonry. They wanted to declare it to be theirs first. Man. Boy, I didn't see that coming. That son of a bitch got his hands on a fucking craft. They've got some kind of actual fucking exotic vehicle in their possession somewhere, and he's broke off some pieces from it. And the Army said, oh, really? Oh, yeah, we'll give you a deal for that, son. Wow. Again, I do still think this is all a part of the narrative of the staged alien invasion scenario, but wow. I think this is probably one of those things that they probably shot down. The way the edges of this thing, they're not clean breaks. Like knowing what I know, you know me, I know my crystals, I know my rocks. Number one, I can tell you this is exotic material. This is not any material. It just doesn't look like anything that would have been fabricated on Earth. And it looks, again, just look like a lot of the reports that we've heard from a lot of these UFOs and stuff that people have described. A lot of them look like, they look like they're made out of natural, some of them look like they were made out of rocks and stuff. We've kind of seen this in some of the science fiction stuff as well through the years. I know in The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai, the aliens in that they had these weird looking crafts, and they were made out of what did they say they were made out of? Man, I've got that whole movie memorized. I can't remember. I can't think of the element they've talked about. Oh, well, no, but basically, essentially that, made out of natural occurring material. But these pieces that DeLonge shows photos of, specifically the third one. The first one looks like some kind of I'll be honest with you, the first one looks like some kind of mica. Mica looks just like that. I pulled some up down there at Lano before. It's in sheets like that. Looks like some kind of mica. And we know they use that same material as what they've used on like the space shuttle and stuff on the wings, because it keeps from burning up on reentry. It's an insulating material. So that looks like mica there. The second picture kind of looks similar to the third picture, but it's interesting. It's like a layered. Yeah, it's like nano layers. But the edges look burned and look like this. To me, I think my hypothesis is I think somebody through the channels, maybe even through masonry, who knows, somebody basically found this thing and got this up to Tom. And now the military wants to get their hands on it. This is unprecedented. I just couldn't figure out. Now it makes sense. I couldn't figure out why they would give somebody like Tom DeLonge, why the military would do a deal with Tom DeLonge and give him millions of dollars, sight unseen with nothing. So that means their dicks must have got hard when they saw this fucking material that he brought into them. And they immediately could tell what the applications could be for some material like this if they could get their hands on it. Wow. I'm shocked. I mean, this is fucking A, man. That about wraps this show up, doesn't it? I mean, my God, that's right back to what we started with tonight, with the space-based weapon stuff and the stage alien invasion there. Wow, man, this is crazy. I've had my eye on this guy for a while. I'm going to continue to keep a close eye on him because the questions that we need answered is where did this stuff come from, who to get it from, and what's it say? I didn't see this at first. It says, Tom belongs to the Stars Academy Strikes research deal with the U.S. Army. When Tom DeLonge left Blink-182 to focus on UFO research, it was all too easy to mock, especially when his To the Stars Academy racked up a $37 million deficit. Oh, see, I didn't know that. What is this pop punk rocker doing looking into wackadoo extraterrestrial science, we all asked. Well, it turns out he's proving the existence of unidentified aerial phenomena and striking major research deals with the U.S. Army. Just a month after getting the U.S. Navy to admit for the first time that it caught a UAP on video, it wasn't just a weather balloon. Just a month after, that's the key thing here. DeLonge's To the Stars Academy has entered into an agreement with the U.S. Army Combat Capabilities Development Command, who are extremely interested in his research, and particularly looking to make strides in how material science, space-time metric engineering, quantum physics, oh, fucking A, man. So I see. So basically, I mean, this all makes sense now. I had to read through this a few times. It's just kind of so shocking to me at first. Now it all makes sense. So he had his hands, somehow got his hands on what I believe is probably a shot down craft that he recovered pieces of that the military, whoever else, didn't get to first. And, he little boy Blue, he needed the money. He needed to get out of the hole. Took him, show him God, talk about a sellout. Jesus. But, I'm sure he was probably already sold out from the beginning. We know he was with the Masons and stuff, but Jesus Christ. Talk about a sellout. Well, I don't know. I guess I'd probably do the same thing. If I found a bunch of fucking wrecked UFO stuff and knew the fucking military would give me fucking millions of dollars for it, yeah, I'd probably do the same thing. You probably would too. I don't know. But this is wild, though. This is crazy. Because lots of questions here. Because, again, the military's not just going to, they're not just going to strike a deal and do a deal with some retard from some terrible 90s band. Whatever he showed them with this material was enough for them to fucking put ink to paper and put some money down. Unbelievable. Support has still been terrible this month, folks. We need everybody to contribute and help us reach 100%. I'd like to reach half of our operating cost goal this week. But we have to have a minimum of $200 in here of our goal at least by tomorrow. I've got to keep the power on. Luckily, I was able to get the internet, keep the internet on. But we got to pay the power bill. It's going to be cut off tomorrow. They already sent disconnection notice and all that, and plus I got to survive and stay on track to be able to get my target goal, as I told you before, for Spellcaster 2 is somewhere around November 3rd or November 4th. But as it always is, it's going to be pending if we don't reach our operating cost goal again this month. Last month, at least, I had some extra to cover it. I don't have that this month. We got to have everybody chipping in, and we need everybody to contribute. Also, visit my download shop, all my documentary films, all my downloads, all my audiobooks. So many of you out there who I know have never even seen all my films and my audiobooks and all that. You need to do yourself a favor and go hit that up. You can even get a package in there that has everything. But make a contribution, get a subscription to the our members archives. Whatever you do, just support my work in any way you can. Check out fixyourgut.com as well. We'll see you next time, folks. Take care. Folks, this is Josh Reeves, and I'm here to tell you about a fantastic website, fixyourgut.com. Fixyourgut.com can help you take control of your overall health. Are you sick and tired of suffering from indigestion, acid reflux, bloating, or abdominal pain? Do you run to the bathroom either all the time or hardly ever at all? Do you forget things often or have trouble concentrating? Are you depressed or anxious? Do you have IBD or SIBO? Digestive disorders are increasing in frequency because of our toxic-laden, fast-paced world. There are billions of microorganisms that live in your intestinal tract that have more to say about your health than almost anything else. Learn how to make sure your gut has more of the right organisms to improve your health and enhance your life. FixYourGut.com has over 200 free blog articles, and it's one of the most valuable resources on the planet to improve your overall health and well-being. Search either Fix Your Gut or We've Read the Documents on YouTube for the latest health and conspiracy information as well. You can also purchase John Brisson's book, Fix Your Gut, or get personal one-on-one health coaching to help get you back to living your life happy and healthy. Visit FixYourGut.com, the ultimate source for all things digestive health.